Middleton Public Library for reaching out to ETC and giving me this chance to take a good look back on the ETC North Addition building project. Honestly, once the construction is completed on one building project, you don't really have time to stop and reflect on what you've just accomplished. Usually the next project has already begun and you're deep into the design phase. So I can't emphasize enough how much I enjoyed putting this together for you all. Thank you for stopping in, and let's go behind the scenes. Who's who of the project? I don't even want to begin to calculate the number of hours this group of people sat in meetings together over the years, designing every detail of this building, from how we'd lay out the containers down to what nut we would use on the railings. Frank and Kirk's architectural expertise, along with Brad's construction know-how, transformed this unconventional design concept into reality. Fred, at the heart of it all. This project would not have happened without his vision and determination, but also not without the resilience and perseverance of everyone pictured on this slide. Fred, Susan, and I had many Monday morning conversations where the question was asked, should we give up on the containers? Is it time to put the containers to bed? Something like that, which unbeknownst to Fred and Susan always resulted in a subsequent discussion between Mark and I and a call to Brad asking the same. Brad's response never wavered. Nope, we can figure this out. And for all the many challenges that arose throughout the course of this project, together we did figure them out. Fred and I were chatting sometime after the project was completed. I said that I was sure glad I never said that we should give up on the containers. And Fred's reply was, it wouldn't have mattered if you did. I never would have let that happen. So a project like this doesn't come together without a whole bunch of people doing a whole bunch of things, both big and small. This is the main group of ETC employees that spend a significant amount of their time working on this project, in addition to doing their everyday jobs. For every person listed here, there are countless others that also contributed to the success of the project in a variety of ways. And a special thanks goes out to the subcontractors who worked on this project. Something that ETC has always done once a project is completed is to hold a contractor appreciation open house, so that those who have worked on the project can see the finished product, how it's being used, and know how much we appreciated their contributions. And just to reaffirm the number of people it takes to pull something like this off, close to 200 people were invited to the open house. In the top middle of this slide, you see the invitation that went out to all the contractors, letting them know that we couldn't have done it without them. The other pictures that you see on this slide were all taken in the area that's right in the center of the invitation. During the design phase, Fred started to call this area the bear pit due to its similarity to historic bear pits that were used for entertainment, where people could look down from above into the pit and see what was happening. It was a perfect description of the building feature, and the name just stuck. And on the top left-hand slide, you can see even Mayor Breyer stopped in to say a few kind words about ETC at the open house. Act 1, Scene 1, Christmas Eve, 1975. Fred, an 18-year-old college student, pitched the idea of a state-of-the-art lighting console to his college professor, and ETC was born. When talking about the lighting controls in the UW Union Theater, the comment, "We can do that better," was made. And 1 year later on Christmas Day, Fred Foster, his brother Bill Foster, and two friends, James Bradley and Gary Bewick, revealed the Mega Q, the lighting console that started it all. In the picture from left to right are Bill, James, and Fred is seated in the foreground. Very sadly, Fred is no longer with us, but we as ETC employees walk in his footsteps every day, carrying with us all he has taught us and all he is inspired to be. To learn more about ETC and our history and what we do, please go to our website. Okay, so when talking about the container project, Fred often said, if you really want to spend some time, just Google container architecture. It's a rabbit hole you can go down into and not come out of for days. I heard him say it many times, but in ETC's case, that lasted several years. So ETC first collaborated with Frank when building our headquarters building in 2004. And at the time, Frank was the on-site design architect for Erdman Development Group. He joined ETC as its business architect in 2012. However, as this conceptual drawing shows, he had already begun working on the ETC container concept as early as 2011. One thing to note about this is it is remarkably similar to the final product 8 years later. So you'll see that in the final photos. I don't know where the original idea came from for shipping containers. According to Susan, Fred was always following the architectural news, and shipping containers were beginning to be promoted as a sustainable construction option. Fred liked the idea of the geometric nature of the containers and the way you can make them appear to be something else entirely. And I know at one point, Fred and Susan made it a point on one of their trips to visit a pop-up business park that was made from shipping containers. It really doesn't matter where the idea came from, because once it got into Fred's head, it was there to stay. So in this sketch, Frank added some graffiti in a tree to demonstrate the neighborhood concept. Each department is considered a neighborhood, and we actually call them that, like the LED neighborhood, the rigging neighborhood, and so on. Each neighborhood is part of the larger R&D community, and then our R&D is part of the larger ETC community. And Fred really wanted to foster that sense. We also explored many other options to embellish the containers, but in the end, we concluded that the containers were the star of the project. They stood on their own merit, and in fact, we wanted to make sure we didn't do anything to take away from that. And then just one note of irony, I guess, is during the building project, somebody broke into our site and actually tagged spray painted graffiti on one of the containers. So this is maybe some kind of weird foreshadowing that was going on. So the single container prototype, from what I can find, there wasn't really anything going on with containers from ETC from February of 2011 until this sketch shows up in 2014. Knowing Fred, I'm sure there are many discussions about containers that were happening, just there was no documented evidence of them. And it's probably because during that time frame, ETC was in the process of remodeling our New York office, and then we had also purchased a building in Mazomanie and had remodeled that. Just some container facts, as you can see here, each container is 40 feet long by 8 feet wide by 9 feet 6 inches tall, and we've put it up to 4 offices in one container. So the prototype design cycle. There were really 3 separate projects or design phases working with the containers. In 2015, we have our single container prototype. Its purpose was to test out the container office concept and work through the unique design challenges of constructing with containers. This included things like, how do you get power, data, heating and cooling into each of the office? What acoustical issues might there be when somebody's sitting in a metal box? Or how do you light them? As well as all the other interior design decisions that go along with any construction project. This container was built in our Mazomanie building, and then it was moved to its final location in Middleton, where it's still in use today. In 2016, you see the quad container. The goal of this project was to further refine the basic container office concept, test out multiple containers on multiple levels, and design the stairs and walkways. These containers were also built in Mazomanie and moved to Middleton and put in place, and you'll see that later, and they're also still in use today. All of these 2 projects led up to the North Addition project, which was completed in 2018. And unlike the previous prototype containers, these containers were built out and put in place in their final locations. So the route to ETC. The top left photo shows containers on a ship leaving a port in China. Oh, maybe I'm going to start this over. So in the building edition, we used 40 and a quarter, and I'll point out the quarter container later. 1 trip recycled shipping containers. Each container was used one time to ship goods from Asia to the United States. And since we don't ship as many goods back, millions of unused shipping containers are just sitting in container yards across the country. I recently saw a statistic that only 6 million out of the 17 million shipping containers in the world are currently being used. Now the route to ETC. So the top left photo shows containers on a ship leaving a port in China. The top middle photo shows containers sitting in a container yard in the United States. And I chose this photo so I could point out how the containers are grouped together by color with an occasional outlier. You can notice, like, especially on the orange containers, how all the colors aren't uniform. And we use this concept when selecting the final container colors. You should keep an eye out for that later. The top right photo is of 4 of our containers that was taken at the container yard that modified the containers in Chicago. The doors were cut in, the door frames and shelf standards were welded in, and the containers were painted inside and out. The purpose of our trip when that picture was taken was to conduct a quality inspection of the first few containers that they had completed. Let's see, the bottom left photo shows the very first prototype container arriving at our Mazomanie location in 2014. So we saw a key benefit of using containers was to save time in the building process by building out the containers in our Mazomanie office at the same time that the building shell was being constructed, as opposed to conventional construction where you have to wait until the exterior is done before starting the interior. It was a good idea and it worked for the first 2 prototypes, but it didn't work out in the end. The bottom middle photo was taken on the Beltline while I was on my way to work one day. I knew more containers were arriving that day. I just didn't expect to see it on my daily commute. It was pretty neat to see driving down the Beltline. And then the final picture is of the very first container arriving at the Middleton construction site in November of 2017. So delivery of the first container, I thought it might be interesting to see, how do you get a container into the building? How does this work? So here you see additional pictures of the very first container prototype arriving in our Mazomanie building in 2014. So the containers traveled by highway from Chicago on tilt bed trailers. They were unloaded with a forklift, which you can see here. We added wheels. The container was rolled into place. And it was surprisingly easy. You can see just 2 people in the middle bottom picture rolling the container around. It was surprisingly easy to maneuver them with just a couple people. Here are just some pictures of the construction. So it was just basic construction with a few twists added in for containers. Basically here you see the raw container that we started with. Again, the doors were cut out and framed at the container yard. We put up the wall studs and painted the container walls, and in the future projects, we'd have the container modifier paint the containers for us. This shows the electrical conduit being installed within the walls, and the strip down here is a distribution strip that brings power and data into each office, and that's something that ETC makes out in our factories. This picture here, this is ETC made cove lighting. So we install that, and you can't really see it here, but there are shelf standards. Actually, you can see it in the last picture a little bit better. The walls were insulated. We installed OSB board, and OSB is something you typically see used in the walls in unfinished garages. We chose that finish for its industrial feel instead of using something like drywall, which didn't really fit with the industrial feel of the containers. And then we installed the cork board, and here you can see a shelf standard, and that's something that like the work surfaces also hang on. And I think, let's see, a couple more construction. So there was heating and air conditioning. This was a challenge to figure out how we were going to get that into each office. In the middle picture here, we opened the end doors of the container, added a floor and ceiling, and then eventually a window. To make a larger office for managers so that they'd have enough room to meet with employees. We installed the carpeting. this is also another interesting photo to look at. We installed ceiling tiles and track lighting, and the ceiling changed significantly from each prototype to the next, to the final. And then just to mention a few of the construction twists of working with containers: cutting holes in the steel, much more difficult than cutting a hole in drywall; attaching the ceiling tiles and light fixtures to the roof and dealing with the screws that stick up through the roof; getting the OSB to fit properly; how to elegantly run and coordinate electrical, sprinkler pipes, ductwork within the office spaces. Those things are usually normally hidden in the walls, and you don't have to worry about them in normal construction. And when asked about the challenges of construction, today I was asking a ETC employee, for some feedback to get ready for this, and he said everything. Every step was a challenge with this project. For being standard, all the containers weren't the same shape or size. They're twisted or something. So every step of the process was a challenge with this project. And I think I forgot that, but it's definitely true. And then here are just some pictures of the finished prototype. So this one is looking into the manager's office from the outside through the pop-out window. This picture here, this is the inside of the manager's office, and then this is a regular employee office looking in through the entryway. This is the inside of an employee office. This is the inside of a manager's office looking out through the pop-out. Another employee office, and then the final picture is a fully inhabited, occupied employee office. And like I said, we still have employees using these offices today. Act 2, Scene 1, the quad prototype. So this drawing is from December of 2015, and it shows the two types of stairs at this time that we were considering for the project. So there's a straight stair, and then this is called a switchback stair. And for the prototype, we went with a switchback stair, but in the North Addition project, you'll see both of these kind of stairs and a lot of other variation of stairs too. So the construction of the quad container prototype. So once again, we built out the interior of the container in the Mazomanie building. And here in this first picture, you can see actually all 4 containers. There's 1, 2, third one's in the back here, and this is the 4th one. This picture shows a new variation of the manager office pop out. So it's off to the side instead of at the end. This is a picture of a war room. It's a larger room used for the departments to collaborate, a creative space. And right here at this point, it's hard to see because one container is cut off, but it's basically a double wide container. We cut out the center wall of 2 containers and mashed them together. This is one of the distribution strips that I mentioned earlier being built on our manufacturing floor for the project. In this picture, you see the end of the 2 containers that are mashed together, and the boxes up above are electrical boxes. There's a custom distribution box that brings power and data into the containers, and then you can see the end of the side manager pop out here. And then in this picture, you see, I mentioned that the ceilings varied significantly when from one project to the other, part of the project to the other. Here you see the installation of the ceiling cloud designed by Fred. His idea of the clouds was to have an all-in-one assembly that had acoustical ceiling material, lighting, track lighting, and the wiring already installed, so almost installed, so it's like plug and play, but also in an aesthetically pleasing design. He routered the ceiling tiles so they'd kind of have a corrugation which matched the containers. It was something that could be, the idea was it could be pre-manufactured and then quickly installed during construction, and we only used that in the quad prototype. So after the 4 containers for the quad prototype were built out in the Mazomanie factory, we shipped them to Middleton, and this is something that you don't run into during conventional construction. How do you get an 8-foot wide, 40-foot long metal box, or in this case 4 of them, in through a working factory with as little disruption as possible? In the end, we had to take out maybe 4 or 5 sections of pallet racking or large shelving units to be able to get the containers into where they needed to be. So setting the quad containers in place, this really turned out to be an event and something neat to watch, as you can see from the faces of the ETC employees in the bottom left photo. Let's see, and by the ceremonial cutting of the ribbon by Fred. So they used 2 very heavy duty fork trucks, one on each end, to lift the set of the upper level containers in place. They used hand signals to synchronize the movements of the 2 trucks. And in the top center picture, the man standing in the foreground is operating the near fork truck via remote control, the joystick. It went surprisingly quickly, and I think they were done by lunch that day and was in time for me to buy lunch for the crew. One other thing that happened during this is those fork trucks lifting the containers were very heavy. At one point, there was a really loud crack in the floor. No crack showed up, but there was a little boom that happened. So the completed quad prototype. So here you see pictures of the completed prototype. The containers, the first picture, they're situated within the department. And again, by building out the interiors in Mazomanie, we were able to minimize the disruption to the department. I think they only had to stop work that one morning while the containers were being set. This shows the switchback stair. And in this prototype, we used the scrap pieces of metal from the container cutouts to create the railings. And again, this is the prototype is the only time we used this for the stairs. This is another inside look of the large war room, the double wide portion of the container. This picture here is looking down the hallway on the 2nd level. And the final 2 pictures on the slide, you can see we used really bold color choices for this prototype. And we'll go through that a little bit later, but it only took one person one time with some chocolate on the bottom of their shoe for us to realize that going forward, we'd choose some different colors in the future. I think I was just referring this. So the design progression of the offices. So what changed? So some things to note, the carpeting was kind of a warm brownish tone. We went to the vibrant tones in the middle, and we ended up with a cool gray tone. And it's hard to see, but in this picture in 2017, in this section right here, we tried staining the OSB board different colors. One was red, one was blue. In the end, we just went with the natural color, and actually at the very end, we added a little stain to change the color from the white natural color to warm it up a little bit. The corkboard changed from one to the next. In 2016, we added an angle to the top, and somebody pointed this out to me earlier today that they think that I'll show you a logo on another page, but it brought to mind the ETC logo. And I think the similarity comes because of the desire to show a sense of movement in both the ETC logo and in the containers. So that is something different. The shelves evolved from these bulkier black shelves to really sleek shelves. They also had cutouts in them, so it wasn't, you can see the shadowing here under the shelves. There are cutouts in there, so that wasn't going on. And then the lighting also went, this is the ETC Cove light up here, which added to the problem of the shadowing. In 2016, you see the ceiling cloud with LED light. The light wasn't really that nice, and then by 2018, we got it figured out and used some, they're called troffer lights. Let's see, there are many other minor changes that one wouldn't notice at first glance. For example, even just like the color of the file cabinet changed from a lighter gray to a darker gray, and other things like that, many changes that happened from one version to the next version. One of the things that prototyping does is it gives you the chance to try things out, make some mistakes, and then fix them for the final version. And that's not always something you can do with conventional construction. So, and I can say we learned a lot about what not and what to do each step of the way. Here's just a design progression of the manager offices. All of these pictures are from the 2018 project, but each style of the office showed up at a different time. So in 2015, we only had the end manager pop out, and there's one of them here and one of them here as a balcony up above. In 2016, we added the side manager pop out, which is pictured down here. The blue container down here where the manager enters in from the pop-out side. And then for 2018, we wanted to expand some offices to the back instead of the front, and then we added the back manager pop-out. So, and you'll see different variations of that throughout the building project. Another significant change from the design was the progression of the walkways, stairs, and colors used in the containers. So for container colors, for the original 2 prototypes, we used the color that the container came in. In 2018, we could only get the tan colors that are pictured here. At that time, all the one-trip containers only came in tan. And so we decided to paint all the containers and choose a palette that was similar to what I call the containers in the wild, the colors you saw earlier in the container courtyard. And it's hard to tell here, but these 2 greens are different. So I think all 3 of these are 3 different greens, but they're similar, like you would see them wear from weather out in the container yard. Also, another major change that happened in 2018 was supporting the walkways and stairs. In 2016, you can see the black, this is called cantilever supports. It was painted black, I mentioned that, and it supported the walkways from above. One of our design objectives, and both of them, was to minimize the use of the support legs, which are here. There's another one down here, and you can see plenty of them under these stairs. So we wanted to minimize the number of support legs and also the visible structure, because we wanted, again, nothing to take away from the containers. So in 2018, I think looking at this picture, there's just 1 support leg here. And you can see in the walkways were supported between the containers, and you can see, you can really see the difference between what the supports looked like from 2016 to 2018. It was really a big difference and a good change. And then this is something most people don't think about, and I will never be able to walk into buildings again without seeing what kind of ductwork is overhead after working on these projects. You can see here in 2016, the ductwork was kind of a mess. It was all over the place. And it was right overhead on 2 levels. And for 2018, what we did is we wanted to be very specific about where things were placed. And we made it a key point to know exactly how all of the MEPs, in construction terms, that means mechanical, which is the heating and air conditioning, electrical and plumbing, MEP, would be run to ensure that it looked intentional and, again, didn't take away from the containers. And I think in the building, oops, my lights went out. I think in the building project, this is the place where you see the most ductwork coming down, and it's definitely much more organized than in 2016. So Act 3, Scene 1, groundbreaking. So instead of just doing the usual groundbreaking ceremony with a bunch of people posing with shovels, I'm sure you've seen them, lines and lines of peoples. That's how we did it when we did the Mazomanie building. Fred, in his usual style, came up with his own idea of how it would go. He first tried the toy excavator to no avail. He next tried the medium excavator and couldn't break the ground. And finally, he successfully broke the ground and dug up some asphalt using the largest excavator. I really think he just had this idea so he could play and operate big, heavy equipment. All the ETC employees stopped work to come out to watch and thoroughly enjoy the ceremony. And as you can clearly see by the smile on Fred's face, he did too. And just a note of what happened to the toy excavator, some lucky child won it in a raffle at the next ETC summer picnic. Okay, the grand finale. I'm not going to go through all the construction photos now, but during the question and answer portion, I'll be playing a slideshow that will show the construction progress of each of the areas in the building. So the North Addition added an additional 75,000 square feet and room for an additional 250 employees to the Middleton headquarters building. It consists of 3 levels, the main floor, a mezzanine level, both of which are constructed out of containers, and a second floor which is constructed out of conventional construction, well as conventional as ETC gets. The unique recycled container design gave our employees not only the individual room they needed to work, but also a creative space that encouraged collaboration and open communication through a wide range of departments. And in this picture, we are looking at the building expansion from the north. So this is a picture of one of the neighborhoods. This is the one where our LED lights are developed, and the next couple pictures are just some different views of this. And again, you can see the container colors. This is the blue neighborhood, and it has a variety of blue container colors in it, with a couple outlier colors to add pop to it. Again, a few more views of the LED neighborhood. Here you see a close-up view of the stairs, another version of the stairs. And then this is the LED neighborhood fully occupied. This is the quarter container that I was telling you about earlier. We used it to make a coffee break area. And in the next slide, you can barely see here, Fred designed this coffee cup cutout in the back. This picture was taken from the mezzanine level looking out the north window. Again, you just see the top of the coffee container, coffee break container. Let's see. This is another neighborhood. It's the moving lights. And here you can see a closer view of the manager pop-outs that we first saw in the quad prototype. Down here, and then the second level manager balcony pop out, which is first seen in this North Addition. This is a good picture of the railings right over here, designed by ETC and inspired by our rigging products. Rigging is what makes curtain scenery, huge jumbotrons move up and down, and ETC makes that. And in making them, we use a lot of cable doing that, and pulleys. And so the cable railing and pulleys here are just a nod to our rigging. And speaking of rigging, this is the view of the rigging neighborhood. Colors are yellow oranges with a gray thrown in here. And finally, we come to the bear pit. Here you kind of the cornerstone, the jewel of the North Addition project. Here you can see all 3 levels. So again, here's the first level and the second level of containers, and then the first level, the mezzanine level, and then the second floor is conventional construction, although it's designed to look like containers. This is a view from the second floor looking down into the bear pit. And this photo was taken from the mezzanine level looking across the bear pit to the X stairs. And if any of you have seen the TV show Firefly, which is a Foster family favorite, these stairs were inspired by the stairs in the cargo bay from that show. So here's the kind of X design. This is a look at the bear pit kitchen, and it's a good time to mention that the materials that we used in this project were real industrial materials. So that counter is made of concrete, the backsplash is metal, wood, glass. It was all real industrial materials. This is a view of the second floor coffee station. Again, it had the concrete counter, corrugated metal panels, the cable railings. This is a second floor breakout space, and we had many of these breakout spaces throughout the building. And again, it was to foster and encourage collaboration, and this is just one example of that. And we even use containers to make the bases of our conference room tables. So there are 3 large conference room tables, different colored containers supporting them. This is a view of the exterior of the building in evening, and one of the challenges, because the container, the interior is so different, but we had to make the exterior go along with the outside of the building. And so the height is different, but we definitely matched some of the same themes that we had in the original building to tie the 2 buildings together, even though they're really very, very different. And this is just one of the views from the north again. And I'm going to have you note kind of the ceiling. Do you see how the ceiling is really lit up bright white here in the final picture? So often when Fred and Susan were traveling to Chicago for Fred's treatments, I'd text them progress updates or pictures of what was happening with the project. And this happens to be the last text I received from Fred. But in this picture, Fred had a vision that the lights, you would see lines of light in the building. Unlike maybe if I go back to the previous slide, the whole ceiling was lit up here and you couldn't see those lines of light. In this small photo, you can. And his reply, thanks, this is what I've seen in my head, is all that anyone working on this project could have hoped for. And so before I take questions, during the project, Erica Abbott, a project assistant, in addition to her many other responsibilities with the project, took thousands of construction pictures, which I had to sift through for this presentation, which was fun. She put together a PowerPoint for the contractor open house, which I'd like to play for you while I'm attempting to respond to your questions. If I don't get to all your questions, if I don't know the answer, or if you think of something later, please feel free to contact me at ETC.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cindy. That was really fantastic. So as we've got this slideshow playing, everyone, if you have questions for Cindy, please go ahead and type them into the chat box, and she will try to answer to the best of her ability. Cindy, I wanted to ask, I know that in a pre-pandemic world, ETC used to offer tours. Are you doing anything virtually?
I believe we are. I don't have the details of it now, but just last week they were filming virtual tours. So I think one should be coming out in the near future and will probably be on ETC's website.
Excellent, thank you. That was something I was always meaning to check out.
Yeah, and there are a lot of pictures also. I mean, a lot of articles and pictures on our website about the building construction, and just really cool pictures of what ETC does and who we are.
Excellent. So it looks like we do have a question just about handicap accessibility. Do you know anything about that for our employees, for visitors?
Yeah, actually that is this must be somebody that knows about the project. That's what I think. So what happened in the first 2 prototypes, we did not have, they weren't handicap accessible, and the architects that we worked with didn't catch that. So our plan had all along been to set the containers on top of the concrete. When we built the north addition, we actually sunk them 6 inches into the concrete, so every office in the north addition is accessible. So it was definitely, that was one of the times where the question came up, should we give up on containers? Because it was really a dramatic change from what we were thinking. And but it worked out. We were able to sink them into the concrete, and it looks great, I think.
Right, thank you. Lori wants to know, what do you do in the bear pit?
That is a very good question. So the bear pit was and I've heard it described, is a playground for R&D. So the open house pictures were obviously in the bear pit, so it's designed as an entertainment space, but also it is surrounded by ETC lighting and rigging, so R&D can also test products or work on the development of products in the bear pit. And it's also an employee break space, so employees can gather there, have lunch, or a lot of people, we even throughout the building, we have different things. So if you don't want to sit in your office, you can take your laptop out and find a comfortable chair and sit down and work anywhere in the building.
Excellent. And Valerie would like to know, what was your favorite part of the project?
I think, boy, it was really special. I think just getting to be involved with something so special, but I guess this wasn't a favorite part of the project, but this popped into my head. So when the building won Project of the Year, we needed to go out. We didn't have to, but we went out to the dinner, and you knew that you got, we knew that we got unique feature and building. I think, I can't remember what it was, business building or something like that, but you didn't know that you won Project of the Year. And so it really did feel like, I don't know, the Academy Awards or something, when you didn't expect to win it, and then they announced it, and you went up there and made your speech, and it was just, look, going to those events is nothing I look forward to, but that was really cool. Something I wasn't expecting.
Can you mention any details about the acoustics? Lots of hard reflecting surfaces, so does it echo inside?
So part of that is, that's why we use the cork boards in the back of the wall to add some additional acoustical treatments. And then the ceiling tiles were also selected. They're higher. You can choose different levels of acoustic treatments. So the ceiling tiles, the walls, but yes, I think when you're out and about in the space, conversations do bounce around. The other thing, the nature of the containers of being corrugated, that also does something to mitigate the sound, because sounds don't bounce directly one way, they bounce at different angles. I don't know if that made sense.
Okay. And is the building connected to the other facilities?
It is. So one of the things was always very important to Fred is that the whole company was connected. And so when we designed that building, we made 3 entryways. One, we made sure, actually there's 4, I think. One, to make sure that there is no barrier, so no doors. You can walk freely from one building to the other. And in the main entrance between the manufacturing building and the R&D, or the building addition, we specifically designed a big glass window wall so you could see in to make sure that there was some visibility and not a solid barrier between the 2 buildings. So it's all part of ETC.
Okay, so from whom did you purchase the containers? And did you get to handpick the containers that you bought, or did you get what you get?
Okay. We used Con Global Industries in Chicago, and they also modified them. 40 containers was a lot, and I think they maybe didn't even have the 40 containers on site. So we pretty much said we want one-trip containers that were used one time, some other specifications. And well, actually, I think that we got what we got, even the design of them. They're different kind of end designs, and we had to take what we got. And we did have them painted, and we did have them bend out any dents that may have happened in shipping, but we got what we got. That's a long way to say we got what we got.
And what happened to the prototypes? Where did they end up?
The prototypes are still in their locations, their original locations that they were moved to in the building. New departments have moved into them and are using them just as they were. One container I did not talk about, we also had made a light lab container, ETC making lighting. The container was a smaller area for one of our engineers to test the lights, and the other half of it was for, I think, marketing to bring customers in. And we actually, so the container concept at first, which didn't happen, is you could maybe move it around, or it was maybe a more flexible thing. But once you heated up, or once you connected up the power and electricity and heating, it wasn't really feasible to move them around. But this one container used to be a light lab, and we've moved it to another location in the factory, and it is now a development lab for a new product we're making called Rain, which is an architectural, or which is a agricultural lighting product.
And are there elevators?
There is an elevator. There's one elevator, and it goes to all 3 levels, and numerous stairs, as you could see from the pictures.
And how did cost compare with conventional construction?
So originally, I don't think I went back and looked at it. I think originally we were thinking containers might be a cost savings. In the end, my guess is, with the modifications you need to make and all of the challenges and extra design work, my personal, I guess, belief is that they were probably more expensive than conventional construction.
And are there pillows on the bear pit stairs?
There are now pillows on the bear pit stairs. Somebody must be asking this, and they have a lot of cool designs on them, and I can't think of what they are right now. But yes, so they're, it's definitely there. I've seen those stairs called learning stairs also, and during the open house, you saw people sitting on them, but yeah, they're also one of the options we give people to sit and relax on.
Cool. And how do the employees like working in the container offices?
Well, all I know is what they tell me, and and I think that they do really like them. One of the things that the container offices have, the people in the container offices moved out of, you can't really see. I'm in a cubicle right now, a taller cubicle without a ceiling, and I think that they really enjoy being able to have a ceiling, shut their door. Well, especially now in times of COVID, it's very handy to have people be able to be in enclosed rooms. So for that, I think that they like it.
Rob would like to know, can we expect a new division of ETC or a new product line that sells shipping container office systems?
No. I believe I can say that we will not do shipping containers again. They were totally worth it. I think without the shipping containers, we would not have Project of the Year or Project of the Decade, but ETC actually, once we do something, we want to move on to bigger and better things. So there, I don't know what it is, but there's something out there better than shipping containers, and we'll find it.
Once was enough. Okay. And how much more land do you have?
Oh, I can't answer that question. If you want, you can send me, we definitely have room for, I know, 2 more building additions that are conceptually designed. But I can't tell you how much more land we have. I do know that we have room for 2 additions, probably similar in size to the north addition. And if you want specifics, you can maybe send me an email.
And there was a suggestion for your next new thing is lighting for shipping container office systems. So that's
Ah.
just a suggestion from the audience for your next big project.
We
Do
do do architectural lighting, so we could do that.
do you have anything on deck? Anything that is going to be coming down anytime soon?
Any new design things?
Yeah.
So we are currently in the process. It's on hold right now because due to COVID, we're limiting the number of people that come into our building. But we are currently building a training room. And also because of COVID, we don't know when we're going to use that or what training is going to look like in the future. Our marketing department has done a really good job of adapting a lot of our trainings to be online. So we are figuring out what that future is. But so we have the training room, the construction on that has been halted. One thing we already did do is where the departments moved out of, the departments that moved into the North Addition, we've already remodeled the spaces that they were in, refurbished them and added a couple offices here and there, things like that. And then for ETC and for me, we have an office in a building in London that we need to be out of by a certain time. So we'll be looking at relocating our London office.
Also to Middleton?
Yeah, not to Middleton, to somewhere else in London.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. This was so interesting and so informative. And thank you for everybody for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you all and have a great evening.